I think you want to go,
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter, you got,
No,
all right.
as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I don't think we'll be here till 8 or 9 tonight, so you'll be good.
Okay, well, I
I'm not gonna time you this.
All right, yeah. So, we'll-
So we want to take it in order?
yeah, well,
Yeah, because most of these are pretty straightforward.
are they? Okay. All right, well, Alderman Nicholson's second in line there, so, okay, we'll get you pretty,
Okay, thank you.
okay. So approval of the agenda,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
motion made, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of the minutes from the May 16, 2016 Traffic Commission meeting. I heard an approval. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 3, request by the traffic engineer to establish a one-way stop condition on Purple Sage Drive at Whittier Drive.
This location is on the far east side of the city. This overview will show you that this is a relatively new subdivision, actually, with this aerial. I believe this is actually a little over a year old, and there's only a few houses here, but there's more houses there now since. And the intersection control within is not established. Not that it has to have control at any or all of the intersections. However, Purple Sage is a residential street. Whittier Street or Whittier Drive is actually a collector street, which elbows into Erie, which, as we know, also extends further south to Humboldt Road. So that being said, this intersection here does not have any control. Given the classification of both streets, the minor street really should be yielding or stopping for the major street. So something that was identified a couple weeks ago. So it's my recommendation to establish a one-way stop condition, Purple Sage Drive at Whittier.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 4, request by Alderman Nicholson to review the yield sign at August and Shane Street with the possibility of a stop sign.
Location on the map. So August Street is again, more of a residential, multifamily. A lot of the zoning along that street is that, but basically it's a local street. It tees into Shane Street. Very similar condition where you have a T intersection, and that's more the minor movement. Shane Street is in proximity of Eisenhower Elementary. Actually, the Alder and I had met out in the field on a related item, but we were right there, so I had the opportunity to review it. Given that it is in proximity to the school, I definitely see, because children are walking to and from school, that probably is a location that probably be better served by having a stop sign than a yield sign. I believe the Alder too, you may have a few things to add.
The reason I put it through was because of the neighbors. They noticed that with the yield sign, vehicles would just, they wouldn't stop, they would just go right through. So they just felt with a stop sign, they'd feel more secure in their neighborhood and maybe prevent any problems. So I told the neighbors I would put communication through to see what the traffic commission would come up with, if they would accept a stop sign or keep it the way it is. So that's what I told the neighbors.
So staff supports the request.
Okay.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Request by Alderman Nanick on behalf of the Art Garage to remove the existing parking restrictions on the north side of Cedar Street from a point 133 feet west of Grove Street to a point 210 feet west of Grove Street.
Here's the location of this. The Art Garage is actually shown in the pinpoint here. It's located on the south side of Cedar Street, just east of North Baird, so a little closer to the traffic signal at Baird and Main Street. The requesters came forward just simply looking for more on-street parking. We reviewed it. Didn't really see the need for the zone. It's actually quite small. I'll show you a photograph of it. So it's right across the street from NWTC's got a satellite campus here. So there's these two signs here, so there's no parking between signs. So you have a driveway over here to a parking lot, and then just this area to the east of there that it's restricted. The only reason that I can think that that the zone exists was probably in the former land use of the art garage. This actually was a garage door and was probably had larger vehicles, potentially maybe even semi-trucks that were accessing that garage. So a lot of times you'll see that the opposite side of the street, that they'll ask the business, or in this case, former business, would have asked for restriction of that parking in that area for that turning movement to be possible. So in this case, I see no reason to oppose the request, so the staff definitely supports the request. And I'm not sure if Alderman Ng, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think Dave was correct that when the canning company was operating there were a lot of semis that went in and out, and I think the restriction was put on at that time. I looked at it, and they do have a lot of meetings at the Artisan Center in particular, which is on the north side of the street, and it can fill up the parking lot very, very quickly. So they made the request that there be parking allowed on the street, and I see no reason not to, so I recommend approving it.
Staff
Your
supports
motion?
it as well.
Move approval.
Motion made,
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 6, request by the traffic engineer to modify the existing parking restriction on the west side of the 300 block of Washington Street, south of City Deck Court.
And this is the approximate location of where the zone would be modified. Just zooming in a little bit closer. This is the flats on the Fox building. And you'll see this is the bump out in question here. It was built that way back when the mall existed, and when everything was raised, all the buildings were raised in that area, and that was reconstructed. It was just basically put in as it was before. After further consideration, we looked at it at Public Works and decided that it just seemed like there was a lot of unused space. We'd get some additional on-street parking for the downtown. So it's our intention to add 3 meters in that area, and then I'll show you in the picture a little bit closer what it will look like. Well, at least the area to be removed. You can see we got these yellow marks here. And you can see this is how we would modify it and cut this all out and get more parking. Like I said, metered parking, you can add 3 stalls in there. And then also, as well as you see, there's a bus stop as well, and we don't plan on having that bus stop location changed either, so it also created an area in there for the buses to be able to load and unload outside of the traffic lane, because right now it actually encroaches into the traffic lane where the bus stop is. So we see it as a logical location and modification. So we're actually coming forward with that. This work's going to take place within the next month, so it'll be done prior to the next meeting. That's why we're coming preemptively asking for the change in the zone. So yeah, we're just looking for that recommendation and that change.
Go ahead, Alder Story.
Thank you, Chair. Dave, with that being said, I mean, when you cut that out, that area out, and you have cars parked there, will a bus still be able to pull in and be out of the line of traffic?
Yeah, that's the intention. Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's over
There'll be enough room?
over 100 feet.
Okay, maybe it's just the angle of it.
Right, I'll show you this again here so you can see we're going to basically cut all of this
Oh, okay.
out.
All right.
That makes sense.
So a bus should be able to pull up into here, and then you'll still be able to get some weird stalls in that location.
Right. Thank you.
Move to approve.
Motion been made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 7, request by Alderman Stoyer to review the traffic flow and lanes of the Dousman-Fisk intersection.
Here's the location, far west side or northwest side of the city, and just to give you an idea of the context of the intersection, you have school here, and you also have the West Side Trail that actually comes into, and I guess you'd say kind of diagonally goes through the intersection, but actually pedestrian movements are all handled via standard crosswalks and push buttons and countdown timers. Looking a little bit closer at the intersection, I guess with respect to reviewing as requested with the lanes and traffic flow and so forth. I'll just summarize it real quickly. We do have dedicated left turn pockets or bays for Dousman Street. then there's one through lane in each direction, eastbound and westbound. There's also a right turn lane or exclusive right turn lane for the eastbound to southbound movement on Dousman Street. One thing to look at, and I think which lends to some of the uniqueness of this intersection, is that there is what we call a two-way left turn lane or a twiddle in this area. This was built in 2008, and it was there to service these driveways, just because there's a single lane of traffic, so it gets turning movements out of the live lane of traffic. And then as well for any potential development if that would ever occur on the south side between Military Avenue and North Fisk Street. So we have this twiddle section, the one lane in each direction, and then on the other side or the east side of the intersection, we do not have that twiddle. So it does lend for a change in the typical section of the roadway. Upon closer evaluation of the intersection, you'll see a slight skew of some of those lanes. For example, this east or westbound curb lane, you'll see actually there's just a slight offset as you go through the intersection. But that is somewhat standard for any sort of a transition that is done through an intersection. And also you'll see that similar condition in the eastbound direction for the through lane. I did just for the sake of looking at safety at the intersection, just to see if there was anything going on there. Actually, the number of crashes at the intersection was very low. I was quite surprised at how low it was. So we're averaging 1 to 2 per year, which basically includes the non-reportables. The majority of them were non-reportables, meaning $1,000 of damage or less, and no injuries, no fatalities, or anything like that. It's actually functioning quite well, at least from a safety perspective. When it comes down to level of service, it's a fully actuated traffic signal, meaning it basically hops around based off of the green, yellow, red, changes based off the vehicle demand at the intersection. Since Dousman Street is the major street, that's the approach or approaches that it dwells on green, so it takes someone with a car on Dousman Street to come up if it's red, basically trigger the sensors, and then give a green light for the side street. So to add, I guess, to that, Alderman Stoyer and I did have a field visit late last week to look at various locations, including this one. And so we walked it. We're able to kind of get a feel what it's like for a pedestrian to be at the intersection, to cross the intersection. Everything seemed, as I kind of stated, it's a very traditional intersection when it comes down to pedestrian treatments. The ped bus is located in very obvious location. Countdown timers are in obvious spots and so forth. So I guess with that, I'm just maybe defer to the alder.
Well, I have Richard Perrins, one of my constituents who lives nearby, and he and I walked it as well. And if you wouldn't mind, Richard, would you like to speak on? I mean, can we have him speak on it?
Thank you. One second.
So when you're ready,
Yeah, we
just
gotta-
give it a second. We'll open
You gotta be
this.
official here, so.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah.
Do you have somebody who will make a motion to suspend the
On
rules?
the floor.
Motion been made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're suspended. Yeah, come up to the microphone.
Thank
Richard.
you.
Your name and address, please,
Bet.
for so we can
Richard Perrins, P-A-R-I-N-S, 1402 Kellogg Street. When this all changed, now, I've lived in this area for most of my life, to be honest with you. I was gone for a period of time, so I'm pretty familiar with what's going on around there. My predominant travel is from, whereas the concern for me is coming from west to east. As the gentleman stated, they do not line up. As you go across visually, the lanes no longer are facing each other in an exact fashion. There's an offset. The left turn lane going west to east is wide enough. Oh, God, I'm sorry, I forgot to turn this off.
Good tune.
Good too.
Like that, huh? Me too. Tells you when I was born.
All right.
as you're going across there, what is often occurred is I'll move over into the very tightest I can get to the right side of that turn lane, because with the offset, people don't see that. And they're coming across that, and I've looked at it enough to know that I would say 40% people touch and cross over that demarcation for the lane, meaning they're not going and seeing that lane to the right accurately. They don't see that coming from east to west, especially that's an afternoon sun lane. So it's a place where they don't have the same visuals. I don't see, other than that, I have no complaint. I mean, you're very correct, the pedestrian, I love the fact that you can pull up to there and there are little sensors that allow you to move across and change the lights. It ought to be a lot more places in Green Bay. Anyway, that's very effective living there. You don't have to wait a long time. My only issue with it is because of that offset, people come at you and then they pull across. And, you know, if I sat right in the middle of that turn lane, I bet you I could have an accident. So it's more about that. I've never known that there are a lot of people coming from the west to the east that make a right-hand turn. Now, you may have studied that, I don't know.
Yeah, when I was traffic engineer when this was designed and built, and we did do a capacity analysis to evaluate four-lane configuration. That's why the right turn lanes exist.
Yeah, okay, because I don't see it personally. I live there and I just don't see it. It's an area that has a lot of congestion, especially when schools are letting out. It is a bad area that way. It's just a matter of time, I feel, before some child is gonna, or adult, pay for it, because they line up as early as 2:30 in the afternoon on the streets around it, and I bet you could get a lot of your constituents that would talk about that. So it gets very congested over there. And just for the sake of having things move through, that might be an additional thing to think about. Maybe there's another way to offload or unload. I walked everywhere when I went to school. You can't do that anymore. Parents don't like it. They want to make sure their kids are safe, etc. I don't think it's a safe area right now when it comes to that. But for my part, I don't see the sense in, for the amount of traffic there, why those lanes shouldn't line up. The right turn lane, I think, is superfluous. And the left-hand turn lane going from west to east is wider than it needs to be. It's wider than the standard lane. So just getting the marker, the lane marker moved over a little bit, might be enough to really make that where people could see it. I don't know if you ever use those little stand-up markers, the knockdown ones?
Postal lineators?
Yeah,
Not in a permanent solution, no.
okay, all right.
No, we don't do that based off of winter.
Okay.
And they get knocked down.
Yeah, I understand that. That's why I wondered why that raised turn lane was in there. Nobody goes to the one side, ever. There's nowhere to turn into. That's all city property.
Which, I guess I'm not. clear which
Where you
part.
have
The twiddle.
the twiddle.
Oh, and the
Okay.
twiddle, right.
There's nothing to the south
Correct.
to turn into. That's all city property.
Right.
And does that chew up your plows? No? It's a raised
No,
area?
they're actually quite
Okay.
easy to
Okay,
pump.
well then I've had my piece. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
That was
Let's,
the
we'll
ad.
just go back to regular business and
Oh.
keep talk whatever you want. So,
Right.
and a
Motion to go, return to.
Motion to return to normal business. Second, all in favor.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, go ahead, Alderman.
All right, thank you, Chair. Dave and I did walk that, over a 45-minute period and kind of checking that out. And, Richard brings up a good point. And you don't really see it now, but when school is in session, Fisk gets really blocked up with traffic. People are actually pulling into driveways and idling their cars in private property. I've had a number of folks. And I know there's probably other schools. I know, Dan, you're talking about Eisenhower and different things. I mean, there's different situations no matter where you're at. But the fact is, you got that intersection right there. You got Dousman, which is a major east-west street. You got Fisk, which travels pretty well. You got a trail coming in there. You got the school over there. And the lanes, I drive it almost every day, so it's not a real big problem for me. But I was just wondering, and Dave, you said that once a year that you will repaint lines generally, you know,
Correct.
in that area. It seemed like they were somewhat faded. I'm just wondering if that would be a solution as well, if you could delineate that a little bit
Right.
better, and if that would help. But, you know, we might have to revisit this in the school year, because right now you don't see it, but you and I have been over there once or twice as well, and it's like, you know, I think Richard, what Richard was alluding to is the fact on the south side of the street there, I mean, and there's a soccer field, and the school is actually putting an addition on, they're putting a new gymnasium to the west of the building right there. The teachers go to the back of the school, but everybody else gets dropped off in the front. And it really would be nice if there's some way that, maybe along Dousman, maybe there'd be a way that they could come in and do a loop of some sort, drop off and then leave, if there was somebody there. That might be something we have to deal with the school, you know, so that's another issue too. But like I said, when you add all three elements together, then there's issues. Like right now, you could drive through there and go, oh, there's no problem. But, you know, I've lived in this area for 25 years myself, so I've seen some of that potential. It is, as you said, Dave, it is a traditional intersection, but as Richard said too, there is a little bit of a, you know, it's not right on.
About a 2-foot offset.
There's just a little bit of an offset, and I think most people, after a while, you get used to it, but for the newer people that drive through it, they might not negotiate that as well, so. And even with that twiddle area, you know, it is raised. I haven't seen too many of those others in the city. I'm sure they might be around, but it's
West
just.
Mason Street, for example.
West Mason, okay. So just when you see that, and I know that you have like dashed arrows or dashed lines that, you know, kind of guide you into that. So, I don't know, Richard wanted to talk about it, and I think that's,
fine.
what's that?
I say I'm fine, yeah.
Yeah, but I think if nothing else, if we can look at it in terms of repainting that area, really delineating that better, it'll behoove me to kind of get with the school and see if there's something else we can do with potential drop-offs.
Sure.
Could you have surface markers at all that would warn people when they're drifting too far to the turn lane?
We have had unsuccessful
Okay.
history using that
Okay.
type of marking just based off of plows, you know.
Oh, they knock
We
them
had
off,
some,
yeah.
we had some subset, we tried that out on
Yeah.
Main Street and it didn't work at all.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
But I have a
So-
couple things I could respond to regarding the demarcation or the alignment of those lines. It's very typical for the pavement marking patterns to match the joint lines when you construct pavement. So the location of those lines probably coincide very closely with those joint lines. The reason we do that is because in wet conditions, the dark conditions, foggy conditions, and you know, somewhat snowy conditions, when the markings they're not as visible, people tend to drive the joint lines. So that explains why you see a lot of where they are. Is it perfect? Probably not.
I've just been scared a few times. People are coming straight across at me, and they don't, you know, I know that if I was in the middle of that turn lane, it would be an even more frightening situation. I don't know, maybe I'm just getting older, get a little more scared when cars come at me directly.
Also, when you're coming from west, or when you're coming from the east to the west, there is a bit of a hill on Dousman, and you come over, you kind of crest, and you can't really see it here, but you crest up, and there's maybe a quarter of a block or so coming into that intersection. So that adds a little extra mix to the situation.
Yeah.
Anyway,
The other thing I wanted to respond to as well, you made mention about during school time and the traffic problems and so forth. And I know, Mark, you and I have tried to address this over the years. And just to give commissioners a very brief condensed version of this, I think I've probably met with Chapel Elementary staff, I'm gonna guess probably 4 to 5 times since I've been here. And one of the visits I had with the principal, and I had made some suggestions, and they were very open to them. And this is what my recommendation was. I think it would actually resolve some of the issues on Fisk Street, would be to actually make modifications to the west side of their parking lot to be able to make this flow come through. So what I had made a suggestion was to have all of your ingress come through here, let the parents actually drive into the parking lot and come out over then onto Fifth Street. So you basically have an ingress off of Dousman, make use of that left turn lane that was built, and then have all the exit out onto the street here. The other thing was to work with the church, because the church has actually allowed parents to use this for picking up kids. The problem that we find is that you can't, I mean, you can make suggestions to the parents, but you can't force them to really do anything. If it's a legal parking area or loading zone, and other than having us restricted, there's really not much we can do to prevent that. But getting back to what my original solution, I think, is to their traffic congestion headaches, mitigate the issues would be to actually allow on-site loading and unloading, entrance off at Dousman, exit onto
I think that's great.
Fisk.
That would be nice.
I suggested it out there, and I know the principal she saw the benefits of it, but then it boils down to, is the school district going to then approve of those sorts of projects on site? So then it comes down to having the schools working with them to get that to happen.
Dave, is there along the west side of Fisk, the signage there right now, it's no parking?
It's no
Is it no,
parking,
but-
very, very standard to what you're gonna see by most schools, but no parking does allow the loading and unloading of passengers and goods legally. So
Because they're in the
that's why,
park.
because they're in attendance of their vehicle, they can actually sit in there and they will not get
For
a
an hour?
citation.
Well,
Hour or two?
That, our parking division sets that policy.
Wow.
It can be interpreted, but as long as they're in attendance of that vehicle, and usually by the schools, they know what the reason is that they're there. They usually give them a little bit of flexibility that way. I mean, it's hard enough that I think that maybe the parking utility kind of gets a bad rap sometimes just because of the nature of their business. There's a lot of people that don't like getting tickets and being approached and
Yeah, no.
everything like that, but.
Your
but-
solution would be most desirable.
so, we'll keep moving on.
All right.
Question for you, what's the width of those turn lanes for Dousman?
I didn't actually measure them, but I do know, I agree with Mr. Perrins that they're probably a little wider than normal. As you know, Chuck, the design typical is 12 feet. Anything down to 10 feet is usually acceptable as a minimum. They probably are more in the realm of 13, I'm gonna guess, but, just from driving them, I would guess they're probably 13.
Just if you're on repaint them, if you cheat a little bit to alleviate some of that, flip it from this side of the joint to this side.
Right. Now, the issue that we would have with that, we would probably have to go forward with some sort of eradication, because those markings they went in is epoxy, and as you know, epoxy is a very hardy pavement marking material, and because of that, we probably would have to eradicate it, and most likely have to sub that work out. We have an eradicating machine, but as we're even finding out on, as the commissioners know, about South Point Road and the West Point Road projects, we're in the process of removing some of those markings, and the equipment that we have isn't even able to handle it because of so many years of being painted. And I'm not even sure, and those are even water-based. So if you take an epoxy, it's hard with the equipment that we have, so we may be going out to contract for a water blasting technique to get those removed.
But is that a possibility? Like I said, I don't know what it would cost, but, what Chuck said, that would be an alternative as well.
Right. It's something that can be looked into, to evaluate or measure the widths of those joint lines and come back with a recommendation on whether, to remark it or not to remark it. But like I had said, I get a little bit hesitant because I can't imagine at first when we put it out there that there was some miscalculation on where to put them, because we typically do want to match up with the joint lines for purposes of the predominantly wet conditions.
Do you want to take a look? Is there something for you to take a look at, to refer to staff, or what you're saying, moving the line?
My recommendation, I probably wouldn't approach remarking it at this
Okay.
point, because I'm pretty confident that the engineering staff had marked it the best they could. If the commissioners want that information, we certainly can look into it.
Alderman Sawyer?
Well, you know,
You spend
like I
the
said,
ability-
I've worked with Dave on many projects, and I trust his judgment quite a bit, but, again, there are a number of citizens I'll visit with, and they have their concerns as well, so. I think what I'd like to see, and this is out of your realm here, I think, yes, but looking to the school to see better ways to drop the kids off in the morning and picking them up in the afternoon. So that'd be one, that would eliminate some of the issues. But like I said, I would like to see that area repainted. I know that, Dave, you have a schedule and that, but I think it needs to be a little better delineated, at least right now. So if that could be done, and we'll still continue working with the school on that particular issue, I think right now, I think that would be a good start. I think it's kind of a work in progress right now. I don't think there's a slam dunk solution right at this moment. But I'm just saying, I revisit this probably 6-8 times a year. It's one of those it's the gift that keeps on giving. So,
When's the last time you talked to the school with your recommendation? When did you give them that last recommendation, Dave? More than a year ago?
I think that was probably, what, 2 years ago, maybe, right, Mark?
yeah.
But I know that usually at Chapel Elementary, at least once a year, that we're
Right.
looking at this.
I'll probably have to contact them again and try to come up with something. That's something we might have to go to the school board for, but, like I said, it's just it's a unique area. You got a trail coming through there, so you got quite a bit of usage there. And granted, they do use the markers, they use the intersection lights and all that very well, but there haven't been that many accidents, like you said, but it's like anything else. There's always that initial first time. So we just want to prevent that.
Sure.
So I'm really not, I really don't have a definitive answer right now as far as, what I want from you folks. I'm thinking if we could just repaint that area more so, kind of see how that all develops. And as far as those turn lanes, like I said, I guess what I'd like to know is what something like that would cost to do, and just, report back to us, not only for this area, but for any other area in the city. And it's based on time, I suppose.
Right. I think actually your timing's pretty good, Mark, on this one, because I'm actually seeking some costs right now from an Eradicator contractor for the South Point Road project. So I can certainly ask them to say, hey, we may be looking at this, and if we had to eradicate the markings at this intersection, what would it cost? I can certainly get a cost proposal for that work and bring it back, so that I think it's a
I'd like
full
that.
disclosure on that. And then I certainly agree with the Elder as well. Just based off the visit, it's my suspicion, and I guess I would have to look at the records from operations and from sign shop on actually when that was last marked. And my experience tells me, my eyes tell me that it probably, that because the epoxy marking was so good, they just let it alone for a number of years, and it's probably getting up to that point now where it needs to have it. Typical rule of thumb that we use is about 5 years before we start to paint over epoxy with our water-based paint. And 2008 was when this was reconstructed, so we're looking at 8 years ago. So it could have been one of those locations that held up pretty good, but now it's starting to show a little bit of sign of wear and tear, and it needs to be remarked. So, yeah, I don't have any issues on getting it repainted if it's so desired the wishes of the traffic commission to look at an eradication cost on that. I'd be more than happy to provide that information.
We want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to have staff review the markings and see what tweaks can be done, cost associated with it.
Second?
Got enough for one question for you, Dave? That enough information for you, Dave, then, for a request?
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
enough for me to go on.
All right, so we had a first, go
I
ahead.
just want to ask one thing. With that eradicating machine, I mean, you said you have one right now? But
We
it's-
do have one.
It's old?
It's not old, it's just that it seems to work quite well on asphalt. It just seems that on concrete, it's really difficult. And,
So,
and we actually have a concrete head. It actually comes with it's available with 3 different heads on it. It's got one that's more geared for concrete pavement, one that's more towards asphalt, and then a hybrid. And we actually bought the concrete, which really should be the most aggressive type. But the other thing that I don't like about that style of eradication is that it leaves a mark in its place, where when you have a water-based, yes, you're gonna get some scarification of the top surface of concrete, however, it's not as prominent. Actually, the water-based blasting, the reason I'm sold on it is actually our construction manager. I had a discussion with her regarding the different types of ways to eradicate markings, and she used to be in the 41 team. She worked at DOT before and was on the 41 team, and she said that by far was the best way to go about it. So, and in an area where, you know, you start moving around, you just don't really like the look of having that old mark there. It almost kind of looks like a marking in of itself. The eradication, I think, is better for us where we have a location where we want to, say, add more of a conspicuous marking, like a tape or something like that, and we would mill it down into the surface, and then that way it becomes plow-friendly. That's, to me, the best application for that machine. But
do you have that many projects throughout the year that you need a machine like this? Or is it kind
we
of-
have enough.
You have enough, so
We have enough.
is that something that maybe we could look at budget time as well, just to find out what it costs for,
The water blast reading?
yeah. If you could throw that in there?
Well, it's budget time coming up
Yeah.
now. We're starting putting our numbers together, so.
Well, it's just to get a cost. I'd like to just, you know, and just see what the benefits would be for that.
Okay.
Okay, anyway, that's, I know.
So we have a motion on the
Calm
We had a
second.
motion- we had a motion.
I did.
I heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you,
And then-
Alderman. Sorry, come visit us again.
Well, not for them, he wants you to leave work.
Oh, you can stay, you can stay.
You just had a lot of communication.
Referred back,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Referred back from study 8, request by Alderman Tom Dwayne for a crossing guard study at the intersection of Radnitz Road and Aphrodite Road.
This is the location for the crossing guard. And as you can see, the proximity to the school is a couple blocks away. So yes, we did conduct the morning and the afternoon traffic count and also pedestrian count at the intersection. I guess prior to actually providing the results of that, I know we've got obviously one new member today, and I know Barb, you're still relatively new, and Bridget. Bridget, I believe that you may have heard this though, in the discussion from Monroe. But just want to let you know that we do have a process in place for adult crossing guards. It's something that was approved many years ago by Traffic Commission and Council. And it's basically, it's a warrant form is really what it is. So we go through, we collect the data, and it basically gives it a score. So if it meets or exceeds that score, that is usually a warrant for installation of a crossing guard. So that number actually is 16. So if it exceeds a hazard value of 16, then we make that recommendation. So this location, in the morning drop-off period, we had a hazard rating of 5.87. The afternoon pickup period, we had a hazard rating of 5.89. The morning had 2 students that crossed, and in the afternoon we had 5. The other thing I think to know about this intersection is that this is actually a stop control. So when you have kids walking here and they're crossing over here, it's actually at a stop condition, so which actually adds to the safety of the intersection. So based off the information that we collected, based off evaluation of the warrants, and certainly due to the presence of the stop condition, it's staff's recommendation to receive and place on file the request.
Have you had any communication with Alderman Dwayne
That I have
in
not.
regards to what you're recommending? No?
No, I was expecting possibly to see him. He usually shows up for his items.
Okay. Yeah, just curious.
I'll make
Well,
a
since he's
motion.
not here, just have to vote on it.
I'll make a motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Termination of trial periods, 9. To receive and place on file, or I guess I should ask you, Dave, please.
Yeah, number 9 was kind
Together.
of phrased a little, I think that's a little typo, actually. It's actually two. The original motion was actually to receive and place on file, but if you recall at council, this is one that was pulled when the report was read by Alderman Weary. He had enough votes to overturn the recommendation from receive and place on file to a four-way stop
Okay.
condition.
That was down by Lambo, right? Down there.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yep, and this also too, just to kind of give you some history and background, I know that there's a development that's currently being proposed at the Venisi Plaza site, which is in the shadow of Lambeau Field, the northeast corner of Ridge and Lombardi. So I know a lot of the residents were a little upset about that development going in and that there's a proposed driveway going to Thorndale. So I think when they heard that and they knew that this request was coming through, I think they probably had a lot of discussions with the alderman, which is why I'm presuming he brought that and changed that at council. But the stop is in. Although I'm not in support of it being there, I'm also probably just as much of a proponent of not messing with the motorist's mind and keep changing intersection control on a monthly basis. It's not a good practice. It actually decreases the safety of the intersection. So at this point in time, I really don't have an opinion on it.
There is one though? There's a four-way stop there?
There is now.
There is
It was a
no-
two-way
was not.
yield.
We voted not for it, and council overruled us,
And then,
for lack of a better way to put it.
it must have been before my time,
Yeah.
because I don't recall this at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that happened. Well, it's in a 90-day trial, so that would have been.
About 3 months ago.
Yeah. So, yeah, just right before you were elected.
Yeah, okay. So no, so we don't really have to do anything?
No, these are just 90-day trial periods where
Okay.
they get read in the ordinance at this point, Dave, correct? And I'm not sure if there's anything else.
Right. It would go on the report to actually get the ordinance changed. There will be 3 readings of it. Typically what happens is you'll get, it happens over 2 meetings, because there'll be 2 readings and 1 reading. That's what happens. So, in this case, I would rather not see it getting changed back and forth, because I could easily see this as being one of those where he'd want to pull it again, and then we're changing around, and we've actually had some bad experiences with that. So at this point in time, I'd just say, just let this one run as a 4-way stop, and that's what it'd be. Items 10, did you want to read 10 and 11? 'Cause
I can do that, yes.
10 and 11 are
10, remove the 2-hour 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. school days zone on the north side of Cam Place. You want to take them together then?
10 and 11.
Okay, 11, to establish a no parking 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. school day zone on the north side of Camp Place.
Yeah. So you guys should have never kicked Mark out of the meeting, because I think he wanted to speak on items 10 and 11. Joking, but he actually had a separate request about that item, and I told him, I said, well, we don't really need to have that request on the agenda, because the 90-day trial periods are up, so we can just address it then. So, but anyways, I know where he's at on this. Basically, the 90-day trial did not work in this situation. A lot of the residents did not like it, and it's my understanding that the person that was going and parking their vehicle there all day, I believe that they moved.
Oh.
So the problem kind of went away anyways.
Oh.
So it's the alder's request, it's the residents' request, and staff actually has really no issues at all if actually it went back to the 2-hour zone instead of the no parking. So basically what the recommendation I'd be looking at from Traffic Commission is basically to rescind both 10 and 11, and it just goes back like nothing ever happened.
Like it was.
Yeah, we don't need to change any ordinances. We rescind both of those, and that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you need them separately?
So we know, we
No, I'd take them in mass.
take them,
They're typically taken in mass.
Okay, I would move to rescind 10 and 11.
And approve number 9.
Oh, we take all of them?
You can take all of them.
Oh, all of them, and approve number 9.
because, I mean, it's just
Okay.
a kind of a mute point or whatever. It just-
Okay,
Speeds up the process.
sure,
That's all.
good.
Yeah.
So, your motion to approve 9, 10, 11.
motion to approve 9 and rescind 10 and 11. I'll second.
Oh, Howie's
that.
got it here, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what.
That's kind of what I said.
Yeah.
Howie's got
Yeah.
it here.
All right.
Dave, don't trick us on those words next time.
Nah.
All right,
I'm here.
we have a motion, seconded, I heard, I believe, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Second.
And we just one item, I know we need to adjourn first, Dave, or talk, are we officially changed now
Oh.
for the traffic?
No,
The
we are
wording
not.
is- Okay, maybe just want to clarify.
Yeah, just a little update. I think Bridget, actually, you may have called, I think you called Sarah today. Okay, here's the lowdown on that. The approval did pass council, however, it still needed to have the 3 readings. So,
Oh, so
and
that's what it
that
is.
will actually happen tomorrow. It's my understanding that 2 of them are done, they'll have the last one tomorrow night at council. So once that happens, then that's the official name change. Legal, I talked to Joe Falls, Attorney Joe Falls, and he said that he would actually send me a notification saying, Dave, you're good to go, make the change. So I'm 99% confident at this point in time that the July meeting, yes, we will have the official name change. So, but as of through today,
Okay.
through this meeting, it's still officially Traffic Commission.
Okay. Just clarify, great, thank you. Next in line, motion to adjourn. Or we should talk next meeting, I guess, first.
Next meeting would be third Monday, which is July 18th, 5:30.
Okay.
I'll second Dan's motion. I think you made to adjourn, right? I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
I'll just have a question,
What's that?
because a Board of Appeals meets at